Hey guys, hi, welcome back once again. My name is Vaishali, and having learned quite a few things from, through, and from within human interactions, and having pursued and completed my master's in business administration and in clinical psychology, I today wish to talk about reality checks through my own meeting with my young Buddha. So, Buddha, as we all would know, or rather, many of us would at least know, was somebody who became enlightened, or at least kept getting enlightened through the course of his lifetime, through the course of trying to find himself. Now, just like our lifetime is comprised of many stories within that lifetime, many experiences within that lifetime, so was the case with Buddha. And in this video, I'd like to share one particular story with regards to him and the acceptance of reality as is. So the story goes something like this, that there was this lady who had lost a young child, and I might be paraphrasing the story here, but just to give it some context, some backdrop to my reality check with regards to meeting my young Buddha. So once again, here was this lady who had lost a young child, who had lost her own child, who was probably just a few days old or just a few months old. And she was in a lot of pain, she was in a lot of grief, and was not able to hold that pain and contain that grief. And probably she also never had somebody to share that pain and that grief with. So she goes to Buddha and requests him, rather tells him, to put life back into her dead son's or child's body. Now Buddha, upon seeing the condition, tells her, assures her that he will be able to bring back life into the dead son's or the dead child's body. And then he says, like with everything in life, there are some conditions applied. And there is only one condition that this lady would need to fulfill if she wanted to see life back into her dead son's body or dead child's body. So she asks him as to what the condition is all about. And he tells her that she needs to get some grains for him, a handful of grains or some grains for him from a home, from a house that has never seen death, that has never witnessed or experienced pain, that has not grieved the loss of somebody or something in their life. And if she is able to get that for him, he'll be able to put life back into the dead child's body. Now this lady goes out into the village, goes out into the kingdom rather, that has not seen any death, that has not experienced any kind of a pain, that has not experienced any kind of suffering or any kind of grieving. And to her dismay and to her disappointment, she finds no such house, she finds no such place. And she comes back to him, telling him that she was not able to find any such house. And in a way, this story is beautifully telling us a few things and not just one thing. Not just the only thing that there is no house, there is no person, there is no space in this world that you inhabit that would have not experienced death, that would have not experienced any kind of loss, that would have not experienced any kind of pain, and that would have not experienced any kind of grief. That's the first reality check, and many of us are only given that message through the story. Second, through this story, it also tells us that many a times we would be having unrealistic expectations and thereby lose touch of the ground reality. Thirdly, since Buddha had requested her to go and ask for a handful of grain or for few grains to be gotten from a home, to be received from a home that had not witnessed or that had not experienced death and loss and pain and disappointment and grief. Quite naturally, it is also telling us, quite obviously it is also telling us that when this lady would have gone to so many homes and would have requested and would have begged for a handful of some grains, any grains, quite naturally she would have had to tell her condition as well. And to some degree, logically, I'm assuming that people would have been shocked and people would have been surprised and would have curiously asked her as to why essentially she was making such a weird request. And in a way that would have propelled her, that would have forced her to share her story with them, to share the story of her loss, of her pain with them. And in a way, when we share things, when we share not just our joys, but our pains with others, but our sadness with others, it in a way loosens its grip, its intensity within us. It in a way also gives us the reality check. It in a way also, after a point in time, makes it a little more digestible, makes it a little more palatable. So when they say खुशी बांटने से बढ़ती है and दुख बांटने से कम होता है, might actually hold true to some degree. And what many of us are actually wanting is not the pain to go away completely, is not the grief to go away completely, but what we're actually wanting is its intensity to reduce to a large degree. It's gripping on us, on our internal psyche, to a large degree. And what also came to me was, in a way, it was somatic therapy. It was the ability of Buddha to be able to move her from one place to the other, to the other, to the other, to probably thousands of homes, to feel a little regulated within her neuromuscular system, within her body. Because like it's said, that when grief and trauma is not processed, it stays in the body. By helping her move from one door to the other, to the other, to the other, he was actually helping her move and release the trauma that had gotten stored in the body. Because like Dr. Bessel van der Kolk would tell us, that anything that is not processed, and we think we have pushed it aside, or suppressed and repressed it, doesn't evaporate like water in the air, but it gets stored in the body, which is what he talks about in his book titled The Body Keeps the Score. And in a way, probably what Buddha was trying to do through this story was helping her release the weight of that pain, was helping her release the intensity of that emotion through sharing with others and through movement in a very psychosomatic way. Psycho being psychological and somatic means through the body. And in a way, it was a very therapeutic process, along with having a check-in with the reality and with the expectations that we can have from our reality. Not hopeless romantic expectations, not all rosy expectations, but calm and grounded expectations. And the story probably also talks about acceptance, because only when we begin to accept the reality as is, can we begin to make any kind of a change in order to move forward. Can we actually find a sense of calmness and peace within ourselves. For it is our discomfort in accepting the reality as is that actually causes more misery, that actually causes unrealistic expectations to crop up, that actually causes more misery in the long term. So it is actually not accepting the reality as is that actually causes more misery than the misery itself does. So now how is this connected to me meeting my Buddha? And who is this little Buddha that I'm talking about, that I supposedly seem to have met? So in order to give the context of my little Buddha, I'd like to go back to share my story. So a few years back, before working as a counselor and as a therapist, I used to be a pre-primary school teacher. And thankfully a couple of parents have still kept in touch with me. So just a few days back, I received this message from one of those mothers asking me that they'd like to connect with me. And then of course we connected over a call, over a telephone call. And after talking a bit about her son, who's less than 10 years of age, She finally told me that her son's birthday, which is in December, has made a beautiful and a weird request at the same time. So this kid has requested his mother that for his birthday he'd like to invite only those who have never ever told a lie. And then she very honestly also mentioned that I'm not sure that I, as his mother, can also go for that birthday party. And then she extended the invitation to me, which I politely had to decline. And quite hopefully and yet a little hopelessly, she asked me, "Can you think of anyone, ma'am, who can be invited to this birthday party?" To which I told her that probably it's only little infants, little babies who probably are just beginning to crawl, people within that age group, and someone whom we consider as mentally disabled or mentally retarded, people who are differently abled, like the ones shown in the movie Sitare Zameen Par, or the character played by Priyanka Chopra in the movie Barfi, who suffers from autism, probably might be the only people who can actually attend and be invited for this birthday. And then just out of curiosity and just out of interest, I asked her as to why he had made such a beautiful and such a weird request. To which she then said that when she had asked him about the same, he said that he would not want anybody in his birthday who was wishing him happy birthday, but actually not meaning happiness for him, was just doing it as a formality, was just saying those words for the heck of saying it. And of course, he said those words in his own language, in his own way, in his own words. But that was the message that she conveyed to me. And that stuck with me, making me think about it, making me ponder about it, making me reflect on it a little more over the course of the next few days. And I hope this message stays with me for the rest of my life as well. So over the course of the next few days, what I received, what I got, the insights that I got went something like this. Firstly, it was actually talking about the reality check. In her attempt to reach out to me, which I'm assuming she must have also reached out to a lot of other people as well, she, just like the lady in the Buddha story, was getting a reality check for herself, was even probably getting mindful about unrealistic and realistic expectations, was probably even beginning to come to some acceptance about her own reality and others' reality as well. And thankfully, she was doing it very graciously, without getting defensive or offensive about it. And probably with this acceptance of the reality as is, it might begin the course, it might begin the course of the change that she might need to bring about in her life. In the words she says, in the thoughts she expresses, in the choices and the decisions she makes, and in the ways she interacts, both with herself and with others. It might also have been that this child, the little Buddha that I call him to be, did not want to interact with people whose vibrations were fake. Maybe he's beginning to realize some of his innate values that he truly holds close to his heart, values that he probably loves in others, and would like himself to be surrounded with people who have similar or same values. And maybe on another level, through another lens, he was beginning to learn to negotiate and establish his boundaries and thereby his standards and his expectations a little more clearly than most other people in his life would have probably done. So then many of us actually consciously know that we should not lie, and yet almost all of us lie, apart from the infants and some special people, to some degree, big or small, at some point in time or the other in our lives. So then the natural thing to ask is, the very obvious thing to ask is, why do we still tell lies? Why do we still lie? Why do we still deceive? Despite telling ourselves and others that we should not lie, why do we still do it? Well, quite naturally, whether in the longer run or in the shorter run, it does serve some purposes. And unless we understand those purposes, and unless we get a reality check with regards to its purpose, it's quite difficult to discern. It's quite difficult to make choices that begs us not to lie. So then why do we lie on a very personal level and in our social context as well? It helps us feel belonged within a group or a community. It helps us stay relevant to a degree in keeping with the image that we have built and created about ourselves. It helps us enhance that image at times with whatever is most acceptable amongst most people or as many people as possible. It helps us not feel like an outcast. It helps us in maintaining and retaining the status in comparison to others. Lying also helps us minimize or cover up those aspects about our experienced reality, those aspects about our created reality, which we know and we think, basis on our past experience, will be looked down upon, aspects that we will be made to feel ashamed about, aspects that we feel shameful for, aspects that we feel shameful about. And since shame is a very gripping emotion, it's an emotion that none of us want to experience. We do every possible thing to try and avoid the feeling of shame. And at times, it also helps us in taking undue advantage of others or the situation that we are in, wherein the brain and the nervous system is perceiving a danger which may not actually realistically be a real danger. It is that aspect wherein our perceived threat starts appearing as real danger, which again is purely a survival instinct. And many a times when we are lying about ourselves, to ourselves and to others, most of us are not doing it out of ill will, but most of us are doing it out of fear. Out of the fear of rejection, out of the fear of our image being distorted, out of the fear of not being accepted, out of the fear of being taken undue advantage of. Many a times it's not intentionally done by most people, but it happens very unintentionally. And just like every action has a reaction, so does telling lies and truth. So does deception, and so does honesty, comes with its own cost price. So just like speaking the truth, which many a times we fear, will reveal our internal motives, will reveal our fears, will reveal our vulnerabilities, will make us feel like an outcast, will make us feel shameful within our own group and tribe, will make us feel unacceptable within our own community, within our own people, within our own stature, which might be a possibility. Lying and deception, which is an action, also has its own reactions. Research today tells us that whether small lies, whether big lies, whether white lies, whether any kind of lies, over a period of time, actually weakens our immune system, our hormonal system. It actually physically weakens our physical body. It has a very negative effect on our memories, because every lie that we have told, the story with regards to those lies, has to be remembered to the exact details. And anytime we forget that, we have to fabricate another story to cover that up. And in case if we goof up with that story, we have to fabricate yet another story to cover that up, which actually puts unnecessary burden on our brain, on our nervous system. Lying also affects our social system, because though it may give us the privilege, some short-term privileges, some short-term benefits of covering up our reality in some manner or the other, over a longer period in time, as our health, as our physical and our mental health begins to get affected, so does our social help, so does our social support, so does our social system. And it's a two-way street which gets affected either at the same time or one after the other. Also, if we look at our evolution as a human being, and from the time that we are little infants, we'll actually realize that telling the truth is a basic survival need, is actually truly a basic survival need. Firstly, because the less lies we tell, the less stress we are actually putting on our bodies, the less distressed we feel, the less distressed we are, the lesser number of diseases we have. And the distress and the disease can both be a physical reality and can be a metaphor on a very personal and on a very social, interpersonal level. Secondly, if we look at our evolutionary history as human beings, we are a social creature, we are a tribal creature. We have always lived in communities, and we probably very likely will always live in communities, be it a community of 5 people or 5,000 people. But from the place that we evolved as human beings, telling lies could have actually caused us our social support, and thereby would have probably costed our lives as well. Because as we all know that telling the truth, being honest, creates transparency and builds trust. And when the trust becomes inbuilt, dependability and reliability naturally follows. And it is all of these factors that to a very large degree helps us truly connect in very honest and very meaningful ways with our social group, with our community, which is what actually helps us stay within the group, probably even did then to help us just stay alive. Thirdly, as little infants, when we come into this world, unlike any other mammals, we are prematurely born. Neither can we eat for ourselves, with ourselves, neither can we sit, neither can we walk, neither can we talk, neither can we stand, neither can we move, neither can we burp, neither can we do anything. We require the help of others, other grown-ups, to help us with all of those processes. And invariably that tells us that we come into this world trusting that others are going to take care of me, that my grown-ups are going to take care of me, that they are able enough to be able to take care of me, which I as a little baby can't do for myself. So even over there, trust is a natural thing. It's an inbuilt thing that we come into this world with, which is also very essential for our survival, just like telling truth is very essential for our survival, both on a very physical level and on the social level as well. For it creates lesser distress, for it creates more harmony, for it brings us into reality check more often than we realize. So let's, if possible, try to, through the art of journaling, truthfully and honestly acknowledge our reality without actually making it public and shouting from the rooftops. Try and address a few of these questions. Writing down, listing down, getting a reality check about all of the lies that I have told about myself to myself, and the lies that I've told to others as well, whether they were intentional or whether they were unintentional. And they would include all of the white lies, the black lies, everything in between, and all of the horrible manipulative lies as well. And well, that just sounds like a judgment, but I couldn't get a better word. I couldn't get a better expression for all of the intentional lies that we have told. The benefits that we got out of those lies, again getting a reality check, and the disadvantages of those lies. With regards to reality check, with regards to false expectations or unrealistic expectations, and with regards to its own detriment on our own well-being, my honest truths, the ones that I gave a voice to, the ones that I spoke and I shared, its advantages and its disadvantages with regards to physical health and with regards to social health, social well-being as well. And let's try and do a real inventory about all of those factors so that we start getting more aligned with what's actually true for us, with what actually truly matters to us. For in my understanding, if we realistically do it, if we realistically take that exercise for ourselves, we will have a realistic understanding and thereby a realistic expectation of our self-perception and self-esteem. And whether our self-esteem is derived from lies and our truths will get revealed to us in our own handwriting through our own reality check. Without anybody actually giving us an idea, infiltrating our world in a world with what is actually truly good for us and bad for us. And the inventory looks something like this. Lies that you have told to yourself and to others would probably cover up, if not anything else, but 2 pages at least. The advantages of lies and the disadvantages of telling those lies, both to yourself and to others. The truths that you have told so far, your honest truths that you have told so far. I've left 2 pages for that as well. You may choose to leave any number of pages that you like, that you choose to do so for yourself. And the advantages and disadvantages of speaking those truths, of acknowledging your truths honestly. And I will personally be taking up this exercise for myself, and you can try and do the same for yourself if you choose to do so. So let's try and reflect on all of what I've shared so far through the message that I received from my little Buddha, or from the mother of this little Buddha. Let's try and do that for ourselves, and I will see you once again the next week. Till then, stay tuned in. And guys, if you do like the contextual content of these videos, please do like, share, and subscribe.